what's up, everybody? My name is Onepeg, apparently covered in sawdust because I just got done hanging a door and didn't brush myself off well enough. Hey, man, we just got dad things, you know? We had to route some hinges. Anyway, there is a new document uploaded to the PACER court system, the U.S. court system. We have a new document for a summons being sent off from Nexon to Ironmace to get them to appear in court. For those of you interested, I do have a Patreon that I have set up. It's $3. You can check all of the notes that I've been taking along the way, all of the copies of every page of court documentation, all of the documentation that I've been sent from attorneys' offices, anything and everything that I have, I guess, accumulated pertaining to the case right along is available to be viewed at your leisure, as well as all of the other research projects that I'm going to be getting involved in moving forward. So if you want to check that out, it's patreon.com/real_onepeg. There will be a link in the description as well if you guys want to check it out. I would really appreciate it. Anyway, we have this document. The United States District Court for the Western District of Washington, Nexon versus Ironmace as the defendant, summons Terrence Park. Within 21 days after service of this summons on you, not counting the day that you received it, or 60 days if you are in the United States, you must serve the plaintiff an answer to the attached complaint or a motion under Rule 12 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. So, a lot of people have been wondering why it is that Ironmace has not responded to the allegations that Nexon has been making with their court case. The simple answer is they have not been served paperwork to appear or respond in court yet, and they don't have to respond until they get that. They know that it exists, obviously, but they haven't been shown anything directly from the court saying that they must respond as of yet. There's a process and procedure to this whole thing. If you fail to respond, judgment by default will be entered against you for the relief demanded in the complaint. You must also file your answer or motion with the court. And then the name and address of the attorney from Stokes Lawrence, Shannon Jost, who is the lead attorney for the prosecution for Nexon. And then there is a second page that just provides for proof of service. And of course, the big question, the question that I am constantly asked from people that really want to know what's going on is how long is this going to take? And the quick answer is we don't know. See, when it comes to international issues like this, when there's lawsuits across national borders, there's processes that have been agreed upon by all parties, for the most part globally, as far as a process that is supposed to be followed to serve paperwork like this to make someone or ask someone to appear in court. And while I did touch on this in the last video, all of this is done through The Hague. See, The Hague has a document that has been signed, I believe as most recently as somewhere in the 60s, I think 1965. A ton of countries all signed a document agreeing that the process that The Hague would follow to serve paperwork would be the one that everybody follows. The issue with this, while it is agreed upon by all parties and it is trusted and et cetera, the issue with this process is that it's time consuming. It takes a long time. If you look it up on Google, it takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months. We have email trails that say just the same thing, 3 to 6 months worth of time before we would see anything from a court summons being handed to Terry, or Mr. Choi for that matter. Now, the second option is one that we already saw in the last video, where there's a court petition that is filed requesting that the judge sign off and allow them for an alternative measure in order to be able to serve the paperwork to the defendants. From my understanding, talking to a bunch of different people, this is rather rare. Apparently, the alternative means is not something that is usually smiled upon, because we don't necessarily know who's going to be in receipt of it, and it isn't necessarily a secure means by which to deliver the paperwork. There's no paper trail proof of delivery, just an electronic one that says that they sent it, but not necessarily an acknowledgement of receipt. So in that case, the courts have a tendency not to trust it and prefer to have it actually physically served by somebody that does this for a living, or what they refer to as a disinterested third party. That being said, I don't see any signatory. There's no judge signature on any paperwork, anything filed with the U.S. PACER system, at least showing that the judge signed off on that alternative service method. So it looks like, at least for now, this is going to be going through The Hague. Unless, of course, there's something that comes up, and I will obviously keep you guys informed. And, of course, the big glaring elephant in the room is whether or not there's going to be another playtest, or if we're going to see early access, or when. And, of course, I have tried to reach out and ask those questions. You know, I figure I got a pretty good rapport with the devs at this point. But unfortunately, and I did not expect them to, there has been no response. And again, I don't expect them to respond to something like that, because showing their hand at this point in this whole legal game would probably be of great detriment to them. You wouldn't want to necessarily give Nexon any idea of which way you're going until you get to the point where you're really ready to announce what it is that you're going to do next. To me, it makes sense for them to try and push for an early access. I don't think another playtest would necessarily be doing them any favors, but I think that they're going to need their own launcher, and they're probably going to need a payment processor like Zola, akin to what Battlestate Games and Escape from Tarkov had been doing right along. Now that takes some doing. There's some work that has to go in with creating your own launcher and, running your own checks and whatnot, and coding all of that is going to be something that they have to do because Steam makes it easy for people to be able to launch games. To have to bring that all in-house is going to be a lot of extra work for them. That being said, though, it does provide them with a means to be able to monetize the product that they're making and provide something, at least when they deem it to be of quality enough for us to want to purchase, which I would assume there's going to be an awful lot of us that will. Pushing this to an early access release obviously gives them revenue to be able to, in part, mount some type of defense for themselves in this pending lawsuit that they're likely going to have to fight for quite some time. Will that slow down development? It's possible, even likely. You have to remember developers cost money, and so do servers and all these other things. So if they have to scale back on their plans in order to be able to afford legal teams to go to court for them and fight, that's going to be money that they could have otherwise been paying developers to try and make their game a little bit faster. However, they are in a position where the game does have an awful big spike in popularity, and given that spike in popularity, it's probably considerably more in game sales than they figured they would get. However, it will not be anywhere close to as many game sales as they otherwise would have gotten if it was just on Steam, because again, Steam makes it easy for people, and it's more trusted by an awful lot more gamers than somebody saying, well, I'm going to have to launch this through my own launcher instead. Now, this has no bearing whatsoever on the outcome of the case or whether or not I think that they're going to win or any of that stuff. This is just talking about timeline kind of stuff. We can get into whether or not I think certain people have a certain case and who's a thief and who's not a thief, and the standpoints of everybody that seems like they have an opinion about all of this. We can do that in another video. For this one, it's really just trying to be informative. You know what I mean? There's a time and place. And for this, we're really just trying to theory craft a little bit on whether or not we're going to be able to open a treasure chest again in the middle of a dungeon surrounded by skeletons and a wraith. Anyway, guys, that's what I have for this one. Thanks so much for coming and checking it out. If you would be so kind as to follow me on my Twitter account at OnePegMG, I would love you all very much for doing that. And while you're at it, consider subbing the channel here. It really, really does matter. Thank you guys so very much for lending me your eyeballs. I love you all. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.